You ever hear the sound of a metal bat hitting chrome in the middle of a quiet suburban street? I mean, really hear it. The way it splits the air, stops conversation, and makes everybody freeze for a second like the world just skipped a beat. That was the sound that kicked off the mess I'm about to tell you. Not the start I planned for a Tuesday, but, sometimes the universe likes a little drama. The HOA president. Let's just call her Elaine. She was the one swinging. She brought the bat down so hard on the side of my guest pickup that shards of chrome and glass scattered everywhere, all over the driveway, the street, even bounced off my shoe. She didn't even flinch. Nope. She gripped that bat like it was a badge, yelling about community standards, about how that truck had no place here. And I swear, in that moment, she looked like she owned the entire neighborhood. Next thing, red and blue lights flood my front yard. Sirens, doors slamming, neighbors running out with their phones up. Everybody suddenly a documentarian, I guess. Elaine didn't let go of that bat, either. She just squared her shoulders and kept talking, louder now, almost like she was inviting the police to watch her work. "That truck is banned," she shouted. I warned him, and she was talking to the officers, not me. My guest just stood there, hands at his sides, face unreadable. Not a flicker of worry. Honestly, I wish I could have borrowed some of that calm. The officers start sorting things out, asking for IDs. Elaine's already got hers out, practically shoving it in their faces with a smile. You could tell she'd run this script before. Then the cop checks my guest's license, stops for a second, squints at it, and something about the way he shifts his weight tells me this isn't going how Elaine expected. She's smirking, tossing little comments. Go ahead, do what you need to do, like she's daring them to disagree. And that's the minute I realized this wasn't her street anymore. Not really. She still thought it was, still tapping the bat on the pavement like she was marking out evidence, still bossing everyone around. "Stand over there," she ordered my guest, not an ounce of doubt in her voice. "You're blocking the drive." Even the officers paused, just a beat, like they were recalibrating. "This is private community property," Elaine announced, waving a stack of bylaws at the officers. She quoted page numbers, highlighted tabs poking out everywhere, rattling off rules about guest vehicles, trucks, aesthetics, and property values like she was in court and the rest of us were just along for the ride. She even turned to me, pointed, and said, "You've been warned before." Only she never had. But that's her trick. Say something with enough confidence, move on before anyone can catch up, and suddenly it's fact. The neighbors all stayed quiet. Nobody stepped up for me. Not then. I felt it, that silence. That's her real weapon. She finally looked my guest up and down, slow, searching for something to hold against him. "Visitors follow the same rules," she said, "especially when they think they're special." And that's the only time I saw a crack in her. Maybe not anger, not exactly, but something slipping. She thought the HOA was a shield. That as long as she had the right papers, spoke loud enough, nobody could tell her no. Here's the thing, though. The rule she was quoting never came up at a meeting. Didn't get voted on. It just appeared. Printed out, laminated, taped to mailboxes overnight. No trucks with open beds. No exceptions. By sunrise, neon orange violation stickers were plastered all down the block. Cars, trucks, delivery vans. Didn't matter if you lived here or not. I saw her that morning, walking the curb with her phone raised, taking photos, measuring driveways with her heel, looking for something, anything, wrong. She stopped at my place twice, peered at my driveway, double-checked. Nothing. I didn't even own a truck. I thought that would protect me. It didn't. By lunchtime, I got a courtesy notice on my phone about guest vehicle compliance. No details, just a warning that further violations would escalate. That evening, a neighbor stopped by to ask if guests could even park overnight anymore. Delivery guys started texting instead of pulling in. Some flat out canceled. The street got quiet, tense, smaller somehow. Elaine passed my house twice more that week, slow, giving me this satisfied little grin. That's when it hit me. It was never about trucks. This was about control, about reminding everyone that living here was a privilege and she decided who had it. A letter came 3 days later, not even addressed to me, just my house number in bold like a target. Guest vehicle noncompliance. Threats of fines, towing liens. At the bottom, Elaine Mercer, president. I hadn't been warned. My guest hadn't even gotten a ticket. But somehow, guilt was a foregone conclusion. So I sent an email, polite, direct, asking which bylaw let them regulate visitor vehicles on my own private driveway. The reply was almost instant. All vehicles entering the community fall under HOA regulation. Hosts are responsible for compliance. No discussion. I sent the exchange to a friend who's in property law. He shot back, blunt as a hammer. They don't have that authority. Not even close. But the HOA kept doubling down. Meeting minutes were quietly updated. The truck ban popped up as if it had always been there. Neighbors stopped asking questions. Not because they agreed, but because fighting back got expensive. Fines showed up without warning. Threats followed. And through it all, Elaine was right there, walkthroughs, emails, clipboards, daring someone to challenge her. Then one evening, a neighbor caught me at the mailbox and, after making sure nobody was listening, told me the real story. The HOA was in quiet negotiations about reclassifying the neighborhood. A new aesthetic zone, stricter rules, buyouts, resales, big incentives if the right properties turned over. Trucks didn't fit the vision. Neither did anyone who didn't look like a future investor. The ban wasn't about rules. It was about pressure. Make life inconvenient, and the people they didn't want would just leave. That's when I realized this wasn't harassment. It was strategy. I replayed every email, every smug warning, the way Elaine talked to the cops like they were her backup dancers. My guest truck, his visit, that was her test run. She chose me for it. And I let it happen because a part of me wanted to see just how far she'd go. Would paperwork scare us into submission? Or would she finally cross a line when authority pushed back? I stopped arguing with the HOA. Instead, I called the county clerk, not to file a complaint, just to ask if an HOA could actually regulate a guest vehicle on private property. There was a long pause, then some typing, then another pause. No, the clerk said. They don't have that authority. I asked about fines, towing liens. Every answer was no, absolutely not. She asked me to send the HOA's letter. I did. She called back and said, this amendment isn't recorded with the county. It's not valid. And threatening liens? That's serious. That word, serious, hit me right in the gut. I called a local attorney next, just to see how bad it could get. He confirmed everything and said if the HOA was using a fake rule to pressure homeowners, especially with money on the line, it was crossing into fraud. That night, I got another email from Elaine. No more warnings, just demands. Remove the guest's vehicle immediately or direct enforcement action will be taken. The words felt desperate now, sharper, less controlled. I didn't answer. I sent everything to my guest. He looked through the whole mess and said, let's see how committed she is. 2 days later, his truck rolled back into my driveway. This time, he didn't try to hide. Middle of the day, engine idling, windows down, right in plain sight. You could feel the whole block noticing. Curtains twitching, doors opening. And sure enough, here came Elaine. No clipboard, just that bat in her hand, walking with a purpose. She didn't call anyone. Didn't wait. Walked straight up and said, loud as she could, this is your final warning. You were told. My guest just looked at her, calm as ever. Under what authority? He asked. She laughed. I don't need to explain myself. This community has rules. He nodded. That's what I thought. And then she swung. The sound, metal crunching, glass breaking, it echoed all the way down the street. She swung again, even harder. Neighbors started shouting. Nobody stepped in. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911. Elaine saw me and smiled. Good. Let them come. She didn't back off, just stood there, breathing hard, waiting for the showdown. Sirens cut through the noise. Cops piled out, ordered everyone to freeze. Elaine started in immediately, waving the bat, talking about prohibited vehicles, saying she was enforcing HOA bylaws. The officer told her to put the bat down. She didn't. Neighbors just stood there, watching, unsure which way this was going. The cop turned to my guest. "Sir, can I see your ID?" Elaine was grinning, sure she'd won again. My guest handed over his license, silent. The officer looked at it, paused, then something changed. He called it in, his voice lower now, more careful. Another cop arrived, took the license, read it, straightened up fast. Then the questions changed. "Ma'am," the officer said, turning to Elaine, "did you strike this vehicle?" She scoffed. "Yes, it was a violation." "Did you cause this damage intentionally?" "Of course, that's enforcement." The officer nodded. A neighbor stepped forward, holding out a phone. The video played, the swing, the impact, everything. Another angle. Another. Elaine started talking faster, citing rules, but the officer just raised his hand. "Please stop speaking." Then he turned to my guest, read his name out loud, and said, "Just to confirm, you're the current district attorney for this county?" My guest nodded. The whole street went dead quiet. Elaine's face just melted. She started stammering, "This is a misunderstanding," but the officer cut her off. "Ma'am, you're being detained for criminal mischief and destruction of private property." She whipped around, looking for backup from aboard. Nothing. They didn't even meet her eyes. The bat clattered to the pavement. The cuffs snapped on, louder than any siren. She was still shouting about harassment, intimidation, right up until the officer read her rights. My guest didn't say a word. He didn't need to. As Elaine was led to the cruiser, phones followed her. For the first time, the neighbors who'd always stayed quiet stepped forward, filming, talking, not just watching. She looked back at me, not angry anymore, just lost. Not because she lost power, but because she realized the protection she thought she had, this system she manipulated, just vanished right there in front of everyone. When the cruiser door slammed, the HOA's grip on our street broke. Clean. Public. No one moved for a long time. People stood around, not sure what to do with their hands, their phones, their faces. Then, one by one, neighbors started talking. Apologies, confessions, little stories about how they'd paid fines, lost contractors, stayed silent to avoid trouble. No speeches, just relief. I stayed where I was, just letting it all wash over me. I hadn't realized how much tension I was carrying until my shoulders finally dropped. Even the air felt lighter. Across the street, the board members just stood there. No clipboards, no authority, looking like people who'd lost the only script they'd ever memorized. My guest stayed by my side, quiet, hands in his pockets, listening. He let the moment belong to us, to the neighborhood. One officer came back, all business, explained Elaine would be booked for criminal mischief and felony destruction of property. The damage and the videos made it a slam dunk. My guest just said, "No special handling. Process it normally." The officer nodded. Charges might include intimidation, abuse of authority. The HOA's enforcement was suspended, pending investigation. They might get audited. That word, audit, it made the board members flinch. Any fines under the fake rule could get refunded with interest. Towing orders were frozen. From now on, enforcement needed county approval. No drama, just consequences. Elaine didn't say a word as she got in the cruiser, eyes forward, finally silent. Whatever had given her power was gone. The system she'd used to scare people, it turned on her. A tow truck showed up later, not to punish, but to help clearing the broken glass, treating my guest truck with actual care. A board member came over, voice small. "The signs, the postings, we'll take them down tonight." My guest nodded. "Good." A neighbor asked if contractors were safe to return. "They will be," an officer said before driving off. When everyone left, it was just me and the driveway. Same houses, same street, but the balance was different. Not because someone powerful swooped in, but because someone tried to push too far, and the limit pushed back, in public for everyone to see. My guest shook my hand before leaving. No speech, just a look that said, "That's enough." And as quiet settled in again, I realized the HOA still existed. But it didn't own the silence anymore. Let me ask you this. Where do you draw the line between keeping order and crossing into control? Have you ever watched power collapse when someone finally said enough? I want to hear your story. Drop a comment, tell me where you stand, or share the time you saw karma come knocking. Because sometimes the only way things change is when everyone finally stops staying quiet.